It started with a password, just one line in an email subject, and it nearly destroyed him. Ethan Reynolds never expected to find his life unraveling because of a simple glance at his spam folder. It was a quiet Thursday night in Portland, the kind of evening where the rain tapped rhythmically against the windows and everything felt calm, safe. He was finishing up a project for a small coffee shop chain, sipping cold brew from a chipped ceramic mug, when something caught his eye, an unread email. At first, it didn't seem unusual. Junk mail was normal for someone who freelanced online, but this email was different. The subject line wasn't selling miracle weight loss pills or a dubious cryptocurrency course. It simply read, Ethan 1989, his old password. His blood ran cold. It wasn't a password he used anymore, but he had once used it for nearly everything. Email, social media, online banking, the name of his childhood dog tacked onto his birth year. Lazy, predictable, and terrifyingly real. He opened the email, hands slightly trembling over the trackpad. Hey, Ethan. All you need to know is, I know your password. I know more than that. If you don't want your secrets exposed, you'll send $6,000 in Bitcoin to the address below. This isn't blackmail. Think of it as a donation for your peace of mind. His pulse quickened. The email continued with warnings not to contact law enforcement, claiming the message was untraceable. At the bottom was a long string of random characters, a crypto wallet address. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. It had to be a scam. It felt like one. But the fact that the password was real? That changed everything. And worse, the implication that this stranger might know more, what did that mean? His documents? Photos? Financial details? He was no stranger to data breaches. He'd read enough tech blogs to know that entire databases of passwords and usernames were floating around the dark web. Still, this felt targeted. Personal. But before we dive deeper into Ethan's story, if stories like this keep you up at night, if you're the kind of person who checks their locks twice or feels a chill when your phone buzzes unexpectedly, don't forget to subscribe for more haunting true stories that might just make you double-check your inbox. Now, let me ask you something. If you received an email that included your real password and a veiled threat, A, would you ignore it, hoping it's a bluff? B, would you report it immediately and call the police? Comment A or B below. We want to know what you do. And trust me, your answer says more about you than you think. Back to Ethan. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he opened his laptop and started Googling phrases from the email. Forums were full of stories just like this. Passwords exposed from years-old data breaches, recycled in phishing emails meant to scare people into compliance. But something about this didn't fit the usual pattern. That password? He hadn't used it since his college days. Not even in his email recovery options. Why now? Why him? Against his better judgment, and maybe fueled by ego or just a desire to test the waters, he replied, Okay, you have my attention. What else do you think you know? He never expected an answer, not a real one. But 10 minutes later, his screen lit up with a new message. This time, it hit deeper. Your apartment number is 4B. The Subaru outside is yours, right? Don't waste my time, Ethan. I'm watching. His stomach dropped. There it was. Undeniable proof that someone, somewhere, wasn't bluffing. They knew where he lived. They knew what he drove. They might have even seen him sitting right there, through his own window. The apartment suddenly felt too quiet, too exposed. Every creak of the wood floors sounded amplified. He pulled the curtain shut, locked the door, and double-checked the chain. Then, for the first time in years, he dragged an old duffel bag from under his bed and pulled out a webcam cover and a tape roll to cover every smart device in the apartment. He didn't go to the police. Not yet. Something in the hacker's tone felt unstable, like poking a bear that hadn't quite decided whether to maul you. That night, he slept on the couch with the lights on, phone in hand, and the TV muted to a low buzz just for company. But sleep never really came. And when it did, he dreamt of a red light, blinking steadily just outside his window, watching, waiting. This wasn't just a scam. This was personal, and it was only the beginning. She called herself a listener, but Liam Carter knew better. She wasn't just someone who tuned into his podcast for the stories or the music. Tess had been with him since the early radio days in Austin, back when his voice echoed through car stereos on the morning commute. At first, she felt like part of the tribe, someone loyal, consistent, harmless, but in hindsight, it was never really about the content. It was always about him. He could still remember the email that started it all. It was a thank you note, sweet and genuine, sent after she'd won a ticket giveaway. "Your voice makes me feel less alone," she wrote. Back then, it felt flattering, maybe even meaningful. Liam replied with a quick thank you, a polite nod to the kind of connection that made all the long nights in the studio worth it. But that kindness, that human moment, was all it took. The emails kept coming. At first, they were occasional. Reactions to episodes, a question about a song, a memory she said his voice reminded her of. But slowly, the tone shifted. She spoke as if they had shared moments together that hadn't actually happened. She referenced things Liam had never said on air, called herself someone who truly understands you. He brushed it off, told himself she was just passionate, just a fan. Then came the blog. He discovered it one night after someone tagged him on Twitter. The link led to a sleek but eerie page titled "Through Sound, We Love." It was a shrine. Hundreds of entries, updated daily, cataloging her version of their relationship. She broke down every podcast episode as if it were a message coded only for her. When Liam played a song, she wrote that it was his way of speaking to her. The song "Marry Me" by Train had appeared once on a listener's request list. She called it his proposal. That was the moment the air shifted for Liam. He wasn't flattered anymore. He was unnerved. He stopped responding to her messages. She didn't take that well. The posts grew darker, angry, accusatory. She created fake screenshots of text conversations. Photos of women in his life, friends, colleagues, ex-girlfriends, were uploaded with captions like, "The one who stole him," and "He'll come back to me." Her words came in waves, rage followed by regret, hate followed by longing. She was spiraling, and she wanted him to see every second of it. He tried to take action, filed takedown requests, reported the blog. Some of it got removed, but it always came back. A new link, a new host. She was always one step ahead. He began living like he was being watched, deleted his socials, cut ties with anyone who tagged him publicly. Friends thought he was overreacting. Even the attorney he contacted asked him bluntly, "Has she actually shown up in person?" As if a physical appearance was the only kind of threat that mattered. But Liam knew better. Obsession didn't need a door to walk through. It only needed access. And Tess had more than enough. One evening, an envelope arrived in the station's mailroom with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter, folded meticulously, like a love note passed between teenagers. It said, "I still listen every night. I still believe. You're just scared. I understand." Attached was a photo of a wall, her wall, covered in printed pictures of Liam. One from a local event, one from a tagged Instagram post years ago. One, somehow, of him outside his apartment, walking his dog. That was the breaking point. He sat in the studio, staring at the soundboard, hands trembling. The mic was hot, the on-air sign glowing red above the booth. But his mind was somewhere else. Fear, guilt, rage, they weren't coming in clean waves anymore. They were bleeding into each other. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like his own skin wasn't thick enough to protect him anymore. And yet, something in him broke forward instead of breaking down. He did the unthinkable. He turned the mic toward himself and told the truth. "Tonight's story isn't about someone else," he said, voice steady but raw. "It's about me, and about what happens when kindness is misread, when admiration turns into obsession, and when the internet becomes a mirror that reflects a version of you that you never agreed to." It was meant to be a one-time confession, but the response was staggering. Messages poured in, listeners who had experienced something similar. Teachers, nurses, creators, people who had been watched, stalked, fixated on. People who had been afraid to speak because they didn't want to be called dramatic. Liam realized the story wasn't about him anymore. It was about all of them. And that was the twist, wasn't it? That the fear which silenced him became the very thing that gave others their voice. That by stepping into the light, he made the shadows a little less terrifying. She still emails sometimes. Under different names, different email addresses. He doesn't read them, but he doesn't need to, because now he's the one watching. Jordan Miles didn't consider himself the paranoid type. He was grounded, practical. The kind of guy who double-checked the back door before bed but didn't jump at shadows. He worked with teens during the day, drove rideshare at night, and stayed close to the people who mattered. So when Amber didn't text him back after her job interview that Friday, he didn't panic. Not at first. They had met working at a community center 2 years ago and bonded over a shared love of corny sci-fi movies and late-night takeout. She'd been excited about this interview. New company, better pay, closer to home. Jordan had wished her luck that morning. When she didn't respond by late afternoon, he assumed her phone had died, or she was decompressing somewhere quiet. Still, by 6 p.m., the silence started to feel off. He tried calling, straight to voicemail. He texted again. No delivery. Then the email came. It arrived in his inbox around 6:48 p.m. from Amber's old work address. The subject was plain: need help. The body was even more concerning. Hey, lost my phone and keys. Can you come get me? I'm in the lot across from the Sheraton on Grant Street, sitting on a bench near a warehouse. It's cold. Please hurry. Something about the wording gave him pause. Amber didn't write like that. Too formal, too clipped. She'd never use a period after "hey." He squinted at the screen, rereading the message, heart thudding a little faster with each pass. The location was technically in East Denver, near some industrial buildings. He mapped it, just under 20 minutes away. But that part of the city wasn't known for being friendly after dark. He hit reply. When did you lose your phone? Do you know how it happened? A few minutes passed. Then the answer came. No idea. Just come. I'm already here. It's freezing. He didn't like it, but he got in the car anyway. Halfway down Colfax, something in his gut twisted hard. The question hit him out of nowhere, like a whisper from some deeper, more cautious version of himself. How is she emailing from her laptop? Outside? In a parking lot? With no phone, no hotspot, no cafe nearby? He pulled over, tried her phone again. This time, it rang. Twice, then silence. Someone had picked up? Just for a second, maybe by accident, maybe not. His fingers hovered over the screen, unsure what to do next. Then instinct kicked in. He called Amber's sister. Hey, I'm trying to reach Amber. Is she... She's here, her sister cut in, confused. She's been home for hours. Someone stole her bag this morning. Phone, laptop, everything. Why? Jordan didn't even answer. He just muttered a curse under his breath and turned the car around. That's when it hit him. He hadn't been going to help a friend. He'd been walking into a setup. Back at Amber's apartment, he filled them in. Every detail. The email. The address. The phone call. She was stunned, shaking as she checked her email from her tablet to him and saw the sent messages. Someone had accessed her account, used her name, tried to lure him out. Jordan couldn't stop replaying it. The way the voice in his head had whispered then, just loud enough to make him pull over. He imagined what would have happened if he hadn't. A car pulling up beside his, a weapon in his face, a van, his name on the evening news. Missing. Last seen near a warehouse on Grant Street. They called the police, of course, filed the report. A cruiser was dispatched to the address, but the lot was empty. No sign of anyone. The officer told them the email had likely been sent through a Wi-Fi hotspot nearby, a public library, maybe even a bus station. There wouldn't be much they could do. But that night, back in his apartment, Jordan sat with his laptop open, unable to shake the feeling that the line between digital life and real life had blurred too far. It wasn't just about passwords anymore. It wasn't just data. This was manipulation, personal, targeted, real. It could have been him. And the thought made his chest ache. He didn't sleep much, but by morning, he knew what he had to do. The following week, he organized a workshop at the youth center, Digital Street Smarts. He brought in guest speakers, designed role-play scenarios, handed out printed guides on phishing awareness, data backups, social engineering. The teens ate it up. They asked questions, shared stories. One kid admitted his older brother had once been scammed through Instagram DMs. Another said his mom got tricked into sending money via a fake Venmo request. Jordan didn't tell them the full story. Not at first, but toward the end, when they asked why he'd started the program, he told them the truth. I almost got tricked, he said. Someone used a friend's identity to try to lure me out. I would have walked right into it if I hadn't stopped to ask one question. He paused, looked around the room. That's all it takes. One question, one moment to listen to your gut. And that was the twist. The threat had come from silence, from a screen. but the protection had come from within. His instinct saved him, and now it might just save someone else. Sometimes the scariest thing isn't being watched, it's realizing you were never supposed to stay silent. Ethan, Liam, and Jordan each faced moments that could have broken them. A threatening email, a years-long obsession, a near trap disguised as a cry for help. None of them asked to be thrust into the shadows of digital manipulation, and none of them had a script for how to respond. But what they did next, that's where the real story begins. Ethan chose to speak out, not just to the authorities, but to others like him, people who'd been quietly blackmailed or intimidated into silence. His voice echoed louder than the threats ever could, inspiring a small movement toward accountability and digital security. Liam, once consumed by fear, turned his trauma into a microphone for others. By telling his story publicly, he gave thousands of people permission to acknowledge their own and reclaim their narratives. He taught us that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's resistance in its most human form. And Jordan? He turned what could have been his final drive into a mission to educate. Instead of disappearing into fear, he stood in front of a room full of teenagers and helped them see that their instincts are powerful and worth trusting. Together, their stories show us something we often forget. Injustice doesn't always wear a mask or carry a weapon. Sometimes it just hides behind a screen. But silence is never neutral. It either protects the oppressor or it empowers the survivor. These men chose the latter. And by doing so, they didn't just save themselves, they made it safer for the rest of us. Now let me ask you, if you were in their shoes, A, would you go public, even if it meant exposing your fear? B, would you handle it privately, protecting yourself from judgment? Drop your answer in the comments below, A or B, and tell us why. Your voice matters more than you think. If this story moved you or made you think a little differently about the world we live in, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's make this a conversation, not just content. And if you believe stories like these need to be told, raw, real, and without filter, subscribe to the channel. Let's build a space where truth feels safe and no one ever has to face the darkness alone again.